Welcome back to the Bourbon Note, everybody. I'm Ben. Got a bourbon on the bar that everyone's talking about. Let's get into it. So on the bar tonight, I've got, bam, this is a sample of Woodford Reserve Double Oak, and this one comes courtesy of non-bike riding Dave Vogel saying. Okay, thank you, Dave. So, getting into the whiskey here, Woodford Reserve Double Oak. This one is a new one that's actually new to a nationwide release. They've been releasing at the distillery for the last handful of years. I don't know how many years to be exact, but comes in at the standard 90.4 proof. And basically what it is the Woodford Double Oak, and then it's oaked again, hence the Double Oak. Then again, double would imply 4, but it's 3 barrels. The standard aging, the double oak, and then it's said to go into a toasted, lightly charred barrel for some extra aging. I think this totals around 7 years from what I've heard. Rumors, it doesn't say on the website. But anyway, looking forward to getting into this one. Because like I said, everyone's talking about this. I have seen some reviews of it. I've had Woodford Reserve Double Oak, but it's been a very long time since I've had it, so I don't really have the basis for comparison on that, but I'll probably do it anyway. On the nose, this thing is super rich and sweet. I mean, this is just dessert coming out of the glass. It's got, it's got your standard, well, I shouldn't say standard because it's not standard. It's got like a caramel note, but I think it's like on the darker side of like a darker caramel. It leans more into almost like a molasses note for me at that point. Kind of like a dark molasses, brown sugar, and like a vanilla custard. There's an interesting vanilla note. Definitely getting toasted barrel vibes from this. On toasted bourbons, like a graham cracker note and like a marshmallow note are pretty common for me to get, and I'm definitely getting that on this. This is really a mixture of just tons of different aromas so far. And it definitely has like some, it seems like there's some dark fruits kind of hiding behind there as well. Like almost like a little bit of fig or some raisin or something like that. And then maybe like some dark cherry. Well, let's get onto the palate, see what happens. Cheers. Boy, that's interesting. It's interesting in the sense that, like flavor-wise, all the notes from the nose kind of transfer to the palate. There's not a lot of different, I mean, there's a ton going on the nose, so all of those kind of transfer over to the palate. There's not a lot different going on in the palate. Like what you smell is what you can expect. But it's interesting because there's this rush of like these rich, deep, dark, I mean, darkness is kind of the theme of this bourbon that I'm getting. Like all the flavors that are there are really, really dark and rich and really good, but it does kind of thin out in the middle a little bit. Like the first sip, at least, when it first hits your tongue, it's like this rush of these deep, rich flavors, and then it just it just disappears almost on the mid palate. And there is a little bit of a finish. There is kind of like a building heat and flavor on the finish. But yeah, I don't know. It feels like I was expecting a little more in the experience part of it as far as like viscosity and mouthfeel. Let's go in for another sip, examine it a little bit further. So, second sip, kind of the same as the first. Bold up front, thin in the middle. On the finish, there is kind of like a, like I said before, like a building little wave of flavor and heat. There's a nice bit of proof there, and at the 90.4, it's kind of nice to have a little bit of a bite there. So I like that, but then the toasted vibes really kind of show up on the finish, like the toasted oak, and then that kind of graham cracker, and marshmallow, and a little bit of chocolate. So I guess we're kind of going like a s'mores vibe. The chocolate's not just on the finish. I did kind of notice it though throughout the palate there. It's got some chocolatey vibes to it that kind of go along with those dark sweet notes, but it's not dark chocolate. It almost reminds me specifically of, like at Easter time, you get the chocolate rabbit. There's something about those that like they just kind of have their own sort of flavor vibe to them. And it's that kind of chocolate that it's reminding me of. So I don't know. I don't know if you guys had that same experience with those Easter rabbits, but for me, they have a very specific, or like Christmas time, you get the Santa Claus shaped ones. Those have a specific like chocolate flavor to them. And I'm getting that on this for sure. Let's go in for one more before we get out of here. So with the double oak, you would expect, or double oak in this case, you would expect a strong oak presence. And I've noticed over those 3 sips that kind of char note, like a little bit of a lightly bitter, but not in a bad way, but like a charred oak note kind of started to show up a little bit more. I did see some reviews of this, like I said. I know a lot of people say that they got like some smoke off of this, and I'm not experiencing that. I know sometimes people will get like a smoky note off of a bourbon, and for whatever reason, that's just not a note that I typically get. And so I'm not really getting that vibe on this. But yeah, the more I got into it, the char, and maybe, you know, my version of what is coming across as char to me is what other people, you know, it's coming off as smoke to them. So that could be just maybe a differing way of describing the same sort of note. But, you know, I would say that this is, it's not a roller coaster of flavors, but there's a ton going on with it. There's a ton of flavor. It just, to me, what it's kind of lacking is the premium bourbon experience, and we probably should talk about the premium bourbon price that this comes with. People are saying $200. I have seen it in Minnesota at Costco and at Total Wine for $170. I actually almost bought a bottle. I had it in my hand, and I just kind of decided at the last second, I was like, nah, I'm just gonna pass on it. Because I had seen a few of them, and I kind of figured, well, if I decide I really need one, I can probably go back and find one. So Dave, thank you so much for this sample. I've really been wanting to try this. And I really like it. I think it's a great bourbon, but I just think that it just kind of lacks that experience. There's a thinness to it. It's like the flavors are bold, but the viscosity is kind of thin, and it doesn't last very long. And so at the $170 price point that I've seen it for, I certainly wouldn't buy this for $200. I don't think I'll be racing out to get a bottle. That being said, if I had bought one, I don't know that I'd be pissed that I bought one. But going off of memory, it has all the flavors of Woodford Double Oak, and I'm assuming that it's just kind of they're turned up a little bit, or they're turned in a direction that maybe brings out that smoke or that char note and that kind of toasted barrel kind of vibe that I was getting from it. But going off of memory, this reminds me very much of what I remember about Woodford Double Oak. So I think what I'm gonna do is just hang on to the rest of this sample, and I'll go pick up a bottle of Double Oak because I've been meaning to anyway, just because it's been so long. But I'm gonna be interested in comparing the two of them and really see how much this one differs. And I'm sure it does differ from it quite a bit, but I'm wondering, like, is it different enough to warrant the proof or the price increase? Or is it different in a direction that maybe it's better off without those extra notes? Because, you know, sometimes bourbons are just good on their own and they don't need the extra help. And so, yeah, I'd be interested in doing that. So I think that will be coming up here at some point. I'll pick up a bottle of Woodford Double Oak and do that comparison. In the meantime, let me know in the comments if you've had this, if you've done the comparison in particular, what you noticed as differences between those two. Do you think the price hike is worth it? Are you going to be going out and buying a bottle of this? Did you buy a bottle? Are you disappointed that you did? Let me know all that stuff. And again, Dave, thank you so much for sending this sample. Dave sent this sample along with a whole box of killer samples. So non-bike riding Dave Vogel saying your generosity is very much appreciated by me, and I know everybody else in the whiskey community. So yeah, Dave, thank you very much for this sample, for giving me an opportunity to try this. So this has been Woodford Reserve Double Oak on the Bourbon Note. I'm Ben. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. We'll see you on the next one.